All right. I am supposedly broadcasting, so that's good. And whoops, and I don't need that coming out of my phone. But we are here just a minute or two early. Well, actually, about 4 minutes early, because I wanted to make sure that I could do this. And we'll just see if anybody wanders in, or if I'm just going to be talking to myself tonight, which is also fine, because I'm sure people will all flock to check out the recording of this. Though, seriously, this is, as I've noted in a few places, this is something that I'm doing purely for my own fun. It has nothing to do with my work on theangrygm.com or any projects for Angry Games, except for the fact that consuming and analyzing game design helps me be the sweary, terrible content creator that I am. Um, but nonetheless, like I said, this is just for my own fun. It just lets me unwind a bit. So, and things it seems to be running okay. The only thing I need to check here is how. Okay. Yeah, I'm just checking the volume compared to the game volume, compared to the game audio. And now I have a cat crawling all over me, so if there's a sound that sounds like a cat rubbing her face on the microphone, well, you know what that is. Ow. And giving me a concussion. Okay. All right, well, let's just get this underway here. So, right before Christmas, I had started streaming Hollow Knight Silksong, a game that I have now put hundreds of hours, literally hundreds of hours, into not finishing. So I got into the super secret Act 3. I was like at 96% completion and hadn't really even started the big main quests in Act 3. I think I had killed one of the heart people, which and and then I cut the tip of my finger off over Christmas and had to take a little bit of a hiatus from video gaming. And then I didn't really get back into streaming and got distracted by other things. And then, for reasons I don't want to go into, my PlayStation hard drive ended up with nothing on it. I mean, it was still good. The hard drive itself was fine, or I shouldn't say hard drive. I don't think it's a hard drive in there anymore. I'm sure it's a solid state thingy. We don't use discs anymore. But nonetheless, all of my saved games and everything are gone. And so we are restarting this. And I'm always a little bit confused, or I always struggle a bit when streaming how to do it, especially because I'm really just doing it for fun and mostly for fans of my work at theangrygm.com. So I always struggle to decide, do I treat this as if I'm streaming for people who have never played the game, or do I treat it or do I assume people know the game very well and just go into the analysis or whatever? And I still have no decision, so we are just going to start a new game, and I'm just going to start playing and talk about things that occur to me. And at the same time, I may end up repeating myself from the pre Christmas stream. We had one stream for about 2 hours, and then I never came back to it for the reasons that I explained. And if anybody does show up in the chat, the live chat, and has some sound issues or wants to say, hey, just, go ahead and throw me a message. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and start a new game here. And I have this, oops, okay. And I still have sort of this old-fashioned view of like let's playing and video game streaming where I don't like to talk over cutscenes and stuff. Also, I don't know how much I remember of this. And then there's the other question, like, should I read the text out loud? Should we do voice acting? Should I come up with a Hornet voice? Actually, okay, apart. While Biscuit gets adjusted. So I have had a very complex relationship with Silksong thus far. Initially, when I started playing it, I was really disappointed and unhappy with it. I am a huge fan of the original Hollow Knight. In fact, I actually describe Hollow Knight as probably my favorite game of all time, which is something that is very rare for me. I don't describe anything as my favorite anything. And I wanted a proper sequel to Hollow Knight. And one of my theses throughout this playthrough will be, this is not a proper sequel to Hollow Knight. It is too different in ways that I think were definitive for Hollow Knight, and we'll look at some of those. And I also think that in a lot of ways, it's kind of a step down in the design a bit. But we'll get. But then, as I kept playing it and putting hundreds of hours into it, I discovered that I do really love this game, despite its warts and despite it not being what I wanted. I discovered that I do love it, and I just don't love it for the reasons that I wanted to love a Hollow Knight sequel. And I think also it's not even a very good sequel. So, and again, I'll kind of get to the Team Cherry. They made an interesting statement about this. They said that they wanted the game to be a good entry point to the series, so that you could start with Hollow Knight or you could start with Silksong, and either way was fine. And I don't think they accomplished that at all. And especially late in the game, you really do have to have a knowledge of Hollow Knight to make sense of what's going on here in Silksong, and things are not explained very well for people who didn't come in from the original. And one of the tricks whenever you're doing a sequel is that you have to make it accessible to new people. So you have to find a way to catch people up who didn't see the first one without also boring to tears the people who did come from the first one. So, and I don't know necessarily that this game even pulls that off. But again, I don't want to be super critical about it either, because I did really fall in love with the game, and I'm still not sure exactly why. I did end up playing it for hundreds of hours, and I restarted it multiple times as I was playing it. So I think there was a running joke in my Discord server about me basically having, I was on restart number 20 or whatever it was, which isn't that far from the truth. Anyway. So, that said, I do think the opening to the game is very effective, and it kind of sets things up, and it uses a really good visual language to communicate what's going on. Isn't that far in that it's... I don't really understand what you mean there about not being that far in is an understatement. This is a restart. In case you missed that, but I may have misunderstood as well. Anyway, whoops. Well, oh yeah, okay. Well, okay. So here's the funny thing about that, because there's Franco is making a comment that only having restarted 20 times is not that far in. Is I I realize that I am not any kind of a hardcore gamer or even a hardcore Hollow Knight fan, and I'm pretty clumsy and crappy at this as well. So even though I did get well into Act 3 and I was on track to getting either 100% or very close to 100% before my last playthrough got scuttled. Nonetheless, I'm not lying when I say this is a crappy playthrough. Okay, I do a lot of face tanking. I am not artful about this, and oops, we're gonna go ahead. It's hard to have anything interesting to say about the little tutorial. Though I did want to. There is a neat little visual language here, and this gets called back later. If you didn't notice it, those little glowy fly moth things that were flying up. In the beginning, we see the character. We see Silksong, which is the name of the character, which is why the game is called Silksong. So Silksong is in a cage being taken away by weird veiled bugs. And the cage is enchanted so she can't break out of it. And then this weird glowy moth lands on top of the cage. And that somehow breaks the enchantment. And then spider webs happen and she falls. And there is a neat what is it? It's like poetry, it rhymes. The George Lucas line. There is a neat poetry to the way it starts you off with a huge fall, because that becomes sort of a running thing through the game's 3 acts. But anyway, those little silk flies, I think that's what they're called. I think they're called silk flies, are leading you ever upwards. And later on, the fact that they lead you is a bit of a clue. And one of the things I'll give Team Cherry is that they have always been good at using the visual language to kind of lead you through the game and tell you things about what's going on. In fact, I think a weakness in Silksong is how much it falls back on dialogue and text boxes to explain shit that doesn't really need as much explanation, especially given the type of game that it is. All right, now let's see, after the injury and the recovery, how badly my skills have deteriorated and how much of a hash I make of fighting the tutorial boss. All right. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna stop saying crap like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna make a hash of this. This is gonna look terrible because I actually kind of got through that okay. That will not continue. And there we have another Silksong again. And also the interesting choice of the word ascend. I really love looking at the very small choices that creators make. Yeah, no hit run is still possible on the on baby's first boss. It is interesting the change from Hollow Knight to Silksong, where in the tutorial area of Hollow Knight they did not ask you to beat a boss, and really didn't ask you to do any really serious heavy fighting. But this game immediately gives you a bench and a boss in the tutorial area. I'm not going to do the voice acting thing. We're going to meet Shrine Lady here, Chapel Maid, because yeah, she's got little old lady hunchback and little old lady voice, so obviously the word maid is appropriate. All right, so I really love noticing. Oh, I was commenting on the fact that they chose to throw a boss in the tutorial area, which shows kind of a different focus in this game because this game is much more combat focused and execution focused than Hollow Knight was. Which is interesting because both Hollow Knight and Silksong, they basically have three core skills. You know, they are both three-footed stools, right? And you see this very much in how the game handles it at the hello, O-Dog. I haven't seen you in one of my streams in a long time. I guess I picked the right night. Um, so though to be fair, Hollow Knight really only focused on two of them as endgame challenges, which was combat and platforming. Right, and then the third that Hollow Knight really focused on was exploration. And while Silksong claims to be exploration focused, it becomes clear that its three pillars are boss fights, gauntlets, and platforming. And you actually see them in the final challenges that are needed to unlock the true endings. Hello, Avatar Cliffy. Yeah, I did a poll to see what sort of nights would be best to do video game streaming of the nights I had available. And a lot of folks said Sunday, and then nobody showed up. But now people are starting to drift in. So Franco's been here with me, listening to me yammer away. Yeah. I can't help but exhaust the dialogue, even though I don't need to. I'm not even reading the text boxes anymore. They're just, yeah, it's like, oh, I'm hiding down here. There's bells. Tonago. Um, so in the original Hollow Knight, there were two final challenges that you had to face to get to the true ending, right? There was go through the Queen's Garden and go through the White Palace. And the Queen's Garden had the Traitor Lord, which was a difficult boss fight. And there was some tough platforming in there too, and there were a lot of hard minor enemies. Like the Mantis renegades were nasty. But it was very combat focused. And then of course the White Palace was very platforming focused. And you prove your mettle in those two things. And then after that, you have earned the right to fight the final boss. In this game, there are three tasks you have to complete to finish the second act of the game and face the final boss, and they are a tough platforming challenge, a tough enemy gauntlet where you have to handle waves and waves of enemies, and a boss fight, which actually That's like the weakest thing there, because like it's Trobio, right? Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, the thing I really want to focus on, because it's my bread and butter, is the Metroidvania aspect of this game, and specifically why I feel that exploration got pushed kind of down the priority ladder, as it were, and isn't really a big focus in this game. And there are even places where the exploration kind of screws up the game a little bit. You know, it's funny because a lot of the talk about the game is that, it always offers you multiple paths. And, if you're having trouble in one area, or if you're having trouble with a challenge, there's always another way around it. That kind of a thing. And that's touted as, oh, it's such an exploration-focused game. But that really, in and of itself, does not constitute exploration. And what it boils down to in this game is mostly about finding secrets. And finding secrets and exploration are not actually the same thing. And this game kind of forgot that those aren't the same thing. Finding secrets is the reward for exploration, but exploration is actually about building a mental model of the space you're in. Whereas finding secrets is about noticing, like I just noticed, quote unquote, because I know it's there. But you notice that wall is cracked and you can cut through it, and then you find these little treasures, and then you go back. So, there's a lot of finding secrets and things hidden behind. Finding secrets is more like imploration. Wasn't there supposed to be like an enemy gauntlet there? Oh. Wasn't there supposed to be an enemy gauntlet there? As he falls into the enemy gauntlet. All right. So this particular room is a very Hollow Knight-y room. And as far as I'm concerned, the game does not do nearly enough of this. And I think I mentioned the first time I was trying to stream this that it blows the execution here. Because the idea is that it's teaching you that you're going to encounter an obstacle, and then you turn away from the obstacle and explore a side path, and eventually the side path brings you around to where you can open the obstacle and open the way forward, which is a very Metroidvania thing to teach. What's interesting about the way this particular room is laid out, and it's something I noticed on like playthrough number 7. I'm gonna walk back over a second, and I think I did comment on this already. So if you saw the first stream, and now I'm saying it again, I'm sorry. But as you enter this room from here, you cannot see or hear little singing Sherma person. And so there is nothing to tell you which path is forward and which path is up. Actually, the visual language is telling you that the forward path is forward, because it's got those little markers on it. But it is a tendency of people who know their Metroidvania games to go off, to not follow what looks like the main path, and to immediately go off to the side. So it's very easy for people who come in there, like, there's a 50% chance anybody's going to go up instead of right. And when you drop down from above to behind the gate, you can even, if you continue going to the right, not even ever notice that gate was there. And for such an important lesson as your main gameplay loop of encounter the obstacle, go off to the side to find a way around the obstacle, come back, and then open the obstacle and continue forward, that's extremely clumsy, and that's not something that Team Cherry allowed you to do in Hollow Knight. And considering this is like the first proper room in the first real non-tutorial area of the game, I was very surprised. I gotta lower the volume on my headset a little bit. I was very surprised to see that. And then we also do it again here, because if we continue following what is clearly now the main horizontal path, we come to a dead end where it's just lava and there's nothing we can do. And so then we have to circle around again. I would actually say that despite it being a little bit dull, the marrow is in the first act of the game. This area is like the most Metroidvania that this game gets. I'm not going to follow that path because we're going to pretend that we like to explore an entire room before we choose an exit. And jumping on this drops it down so that now we have a shortcut to get up here. Because the other thing about the original... You know what? I should be streaming the original Hollow Knight. We should do like a really good critical playthrough of the original Hollow Knight and everything it does, and then do this. But I don't know what going back to that would be like now. So we have this exit, and we have the other exit to the right. And the other exit is actually slightly more salient because it has this... has that, like, interesting little... It has that interesting little sign of, oh, what does this mean? So, but it is, again, it's sort of interesting because if I went up and I kept going up and left, I would miss all of this over here. And this little space here is very important for a couple of reasons. The first is that it introduces you to the quest structure in the game. I know the game gave me another quest to, get to the end of the game, which is, reach the Citadel. Okay, but this is the first sort of like NPC favor. And this is a very important one. This is one that stays with you through the entire game, even when you complete it. And it's the sort of thing that the game doesn't make sure that you're going to trip over. And you compare it to the way the game funnels you to at least finding a grub and finding the grub father before you get too far into the game. I mean, theoretically, you could miss the grub father, but the way that the map was laid out, it was a lot less likely that players would. Whereas here you have this whole side loop that loops back into what we'll call the critical path through the game. But then the other thing is that, assuming you have figured out to bang on the walls and find the secrets, like I just did, unless I'm mistaken, this is the first tool... Nope, I am mistaken. This is just money. Never mind. That's just money. Did I do a rant about the stupid design of the money, by the way? How the money is the most annoying shit in this game? Not because it's hard to come by. Okay, those damn beads being round physics objects that roll all over friggin' creation. and invariably always roll into pits and get destroyed whenever they touch a hazard. Like, at least the Geo in Hollow Knight, when it fell into spikes, it was still there. So if you had the little fly gathering charm, the Geo wasn't destroyed by falling into a hazard. But here, the rosaries, they go all the hell all over the place, and half of them always end up getting destroyed. And you never have enough. It's like the game is just a dick about it. The other thing too is right. Don't get hit. Like, the enemies also drop these little bone shard things. Here's what I was going to talk about. This is the first tool in the game. Yeah, spherical coins are... Avatar Cliffy has it. Is exactly what I'm saying. Spherical coins are a terrible idea, especially if they can roll... They're prevented from rolling off the map, unless they roll off the bottom of the map. But especially if they can be destroyed by level hazards. It's just terrible. And that's the sort of thing that you just pick up while you're like while you're alpha testing the game, and you just play like the first time you boot it up, and you jump into the game, because this had to happen, right? Ari and William, they had to boot up a version of the game at some point very early on, and go and knock into some rosaries, like break one of those rosary deposits. And then the rosary scattered to the four winds, and a bunch of them landed in the spike pit, and the two of them had to look at that and say, no, that's how we want it to be. At no point did they say, maybe they shouldn't roll around all over creation like marbles on like a greased frozen lake. They looked at that and said, working as intended. Pass me the bleach. Glug, glug, glug. That one... I'm not going to do the whole Bleach straight. I don't think they're bad designers at all. I think they are very, very good designers. Hollow Knight is proof of that. I do think they made some questionable choices in this game, and I have made fun of a lot of them already in my Discord server. But I think that they have made a lot of questionable choices, and I think they got a little bit too lost in making something that was fun for them instead of considering what would be fun for everybody. I think they lost some of the accessibility of their audience. This, by the way, is a shortcut back to that first room. So we can now get back up here easily. Which makes it all the more likely that if we had skipped the flea circus, we might never go back that way until we notice that hole in the map. And this is Chakram. Okay, so I got lots of money here, so we'll buy the maps. So I'll buy the maps here. So the money in this game is something that gets criticized a lot. And I actually think the money is one of the things that they drastically improved from the first game, honestly. So I'll lay out the criticism first, and I will also admit that part of the criticism is somewhat tempered by the fact that after the game launched, in patches, things were correct. Oh, actually, wait, I want to talk about this too, because here we go again. So these little things, they release these little bone shards that you use, that you don't know what they are yet, but they're another collectible. And those little fossils, they grow out of the walls, and they have bone shard deposits in them. And they are always invariably placed to launch half of their little bone shards right into spiky pits. Anywho. So the money thing. One of the major criticisms that this game has received is that it's very, very stingy with the money and very, very quick to take your money away from you. So you have to pay for everything. You have to pay for benches. You have to pay for fast travel. You have to pay for maps. You have to pay for items. And whenever you reach a point where you have to pay for something, it feels like you just never quite have enough money. And there are a few bigger money sinks in the game as well. Hollow Knight got a lot of criticism because in a lot of ways it was the same, where you had to pay for benches and you had to pay for gates and you had to pay for this and you had to pay for maps and there were a million upgrades to buy and dozens of different vendors and all of this. And then the problem was that money in the game was so plentiful that you always had too much of it. Oh, we can't go this way. We're blocked by these weird threads. Oh, Metroidvania gate. Except it's not. We'll come back to that. But anyway, Hollow Knight, money. You always had plenty of money because the money was so plentiful. So early in the game, you always felt like you were grubbing for money. And then you figured out at some point, it's like, oh, actually the money is kind of easy to come by and I don't need to worry about it nearly so much. And then you were always just carrying plenty of money around. So this game, I think, is actually very clever with its money, except that it released with its prices a little too high. Because assuming you play reasonably well and get better at it as the game goes on, whenever you come to a place where you need money, while you may not always have enough, it's pretty rare that you are off by a lot. And there are always places where the money is plentiful very nearby to the places where you need the money. Like this area with these little pilgrims that all drop money. Because in this game, not all enemies drop money. But this whole area here where there's a whole bunch of pilgrims that all drop money, it's right near where the map shop is. And as we will discover in a little while, there's also a shortcut back to the town, so we can go back to the first vendor. There's a clever quest that sends us back up here for more money. So we can get money pretty easily when we need it. And really, if you think about it, the ideal situation in a game where you do need to spend some money to progress, okay, because we do have to differentiate the different money needs. But if you have to spend money to progress or to unlock necessities, because I would consider things like benches and fast travel to be necessities. You're not playing... that was stupid. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Stop thinking about money for a second. Things like benches, gates, fast travel, all of that stuff, those are necessities. You need them to play the game. And the game is designed around the idea that you're going to have access to them. All right, that was kind of stupid. So, in a game where there is some spending that is a necessity, the ideal situation is that players will reach those points with just one side or the other of enough money. Like, I get to a point where I need 30 monies to unlock a bench. It's really good if I get there with somewhere between 25 and 45 monies. Right? That's the ideal situation. So the player is always almost poor or just scraping by. But then this game also lets you adjust adjust to your own ability to hold on to money. Because obviously one of the biggest punishments for dying is that you leave all your money behind and you have to get back to your corpse to get the money back. So the game lets you adjust to that too by letting you bank money in a hard state. Oh, right. That is like, whatchamacallit. You can get your beads strung into strings that don't get lost when you die. There's a fee for it, but the fee is actually fairly trivial. And if you need it, the fee is worth it. Like me, I don't mind carrying around huge amounts of money. But, someone who, hasn't played for hundreds of hours and gotten not crappy at it, they might not feel nearly so comfortable at carrying around the money, and so they have the strings as an option, plus you find strings in the world, so not all the money you find is in loose rosary beads. So that also is very good design money-wise. What causes a problem, though, and this is a really tough question, it's a really tough design issue when you get down to it, is there's two kinds of spending in this game. There is progression spending, where as you're moving through the game, you need to spend money to unlock benches and unlock gates and unlock this and unlock that, which, as I said, these things are necessities. You cannot not expect the player to do them. That was good. There's always going to be that spending, and what you want for that spending is for it to be pretty much always just the amount of money that the player has. For the other type of spending in the game, though, is where you have the vendors and they sell you upgrades. And you can buy all sorts of things in this game. In fact, you can buy more types of things than even in Hollow Knight. And that sort of, like, discretionary spending, I hate to use that term, but I can't think of another term for it. That type of discretionary spending requires the player to be able to save money and to make smart spending decisions. Because what you don't want is you don't want the player to hit a vendor and have all the money they need to buy out the vendor. Because then the player's not making a choice and the money feels trivial. I'm just going to empty out the vendor, I will get everything, and then not even consider what are good purchases and what are bad purchases. Whoop, got a little close there. Forgot my distance. So much for my one-hit or my no-hit move fight. Whoop. Alright, I do have a little bit of a problem where I kind of lock in a little bit on bosses and lose the thread of what I was talking about for a moment. But we're just going to accept that. We're just going to accept that we go on a little pause here as I play with the boss. Though I could also be talking about, this is the Bell Beast. You might notice he has a couple of different moves. His moves include running, jumping, and things falling on you. Also, I'm being really ballsy with him. Or her. I think canonically it's a she. Oh yeah, I know it's a she because she has babies later. Though I guess he could have adopted. I do love the heal in midair thing. We will get back to the money. We will return to the money discussion in a moment. And we'll return to the money discussion now. Alright, that was a little clumsy, but not terrible. But I was also being way more aggressive than I usually am. I also want to talk about the stupid silk shot thing, or the silk spear. Because it's a Metroidvania lie, is what it is. It's one of the places where the game lies about being a Metroidvania game. But anyway. So the discretionary spending thing is like, ideally you want the player to have enough money to buy one or two things, and then to look at the list and think about which one of these things looks cool. I'll buy this thing, I'll buy that thing. I like to have red tools, I like to have yellow tools, or, I like hit points, so I'll buy mask shards, whatever, and have to save for the rest. And the problem is, if you're allowing for saving, which you have to allow if you're going to have that kind of discretionary spending, you then kind of shoot yourself in the foot with the whole, the player should always have just enough money for progress spending. And it's a tough balancing act. And a lot of it comes down to where you put the vendors and how you structure the game. And I'm going to argue that this is a major strength of Silksong, especially right here, in that it structures its game very well around all of its spending. Okay, and it's actually going to do something for us right now, where it now sends us, like, we have just unlocked fast travel, so we can go back to the town at the beginning of the game. And I forgot to unlock the shortcut up to the town, but that's okay. That's okay. So we go back to the town now. And first of all, we have more money to begin with. Plus we have these bead strings that I can break up. I also didn't remember to go complete I'm doing terrible. Okay. Number one, we have more money. So we can immediately go to the shop, and now we can do the spending thing. And I could say, I definitely want to buy this because this gathers money. And the descriptions of the items and the symbols of that they represent kind of tell me sort of what they'll do, at least here, so that I can kind of make a smart decision. And I like the idea of gathering more money, so I'm definitely going to spend on that. And then this is a crafting item. This is a resource that somebody else is going to be able to use to make me stuff, right? So I'll go ahead and buy that. So it does very good on its signaling. And then I'm left with a little bit. But it also has now finished building this quest, the quest marker thing, right? And now it's offering me 2 quests. And one of the quests it's offering me, like, first it just wants to take my bone shard things for nothing. Like, this has no reward. This is just, hey, flush your bone shard things down the toilet, which you don't care about right now because you still don't care what they are. Or you still don't know what they are. But anyway, flush your bone shard things down the toilet. Here's a quest with no reward. Okay, but then it offers you this quest, which sends you back up to the village of the pilgrims where you were at, and says, go kill those dudes and gather their pants. Which, by the way, would be easier for me to do if I had actually explored and unlocked the shortcut back to town, but I fucked up. And I would wager that most players would not actually fuck up there, but we're going to have to take a slightly longer way around to get back. So it now sends me back up to the village, and the enemies that it's having me fight, and it wants me to fight something like 12 of them, or whatever it is, so that I can steal 12 pants. Which, literally, by the way, I'm not joking around there. When you go, you're actually stripping the clothes off the little bugs. Okay, so it has me go and fight these guys. And while you know what? Also, I'm forgetting to put my tools on. I am so distracted. This is the worst. Go watch my first playthrough. I at least seem to know. I at least seem to have some focus, while at the same time I was not nearly okay. Yes, we're gonna. Am I missing? Oh, right, because I didn't get the Druid Lady's quest. Yeah, okay, I'm a mess. All right, at least I have the magnetite thingy. We have the magnetite brooch. Okay. So now this quest. So We unlock fast travel. Fast travel lets us go back to town. When we go back to town, we notice that the quest board is finished. And then the quest board immediately sends us back up here, a place that we know, a place that is a good money farming place. Which if we hadn't figured that out now, we would notice it now that, oh, this is a really good place for farming money. And we have to farm items to do it. And when all is said and done, we're going to end up with those monies plus the money reward for completing the quest. And we have learned something important about the game's loop. And this is how it solves the discretionary spending problem. Because what the game periodically wants you to do is go back to its towns, go back to its hubs, and do some, and then whenever you go back to it, you're being a little bit aggressive there. Not really respecting my personal space. So periodically the game lets you go back to its little hubs, its little towns, Bone Bottom being the first one. And when you go back there, quests will be unlocked. They will send you out in the world to gather things and gather money. And then invariably in so doing, you will either have money from, progressing through the game or gather money by completing the quests. And then you will be able to buy a few things from the vendors and then lather, rinse, repeat. But it also means that when you're done with that loop, where, you've made some progress in the game, you go back to the town, and now you've done the quests in the town. Forgot to take off your pants. You've done the quests in the town, you've bought some things from the vendors, you're poor again, and then you start making progress, and then you get to the next progress purchase, and then you have either just enough or just not enough money and have to gather it from nearby. And there's always a place nearby to gather the money. It's a really well done gameplay loop for an open world role-playing game. Because when you think about it, that's exactly the sort of progression you would do in something like a Skyrim or a Breath of the Wild, where you get to a new town, you get a bunch of quests, you go out and do the quests, then you go progress along a main progression to the next town. And that gives Silksong a very, very particular structure that, while it isn't what I wanted, because I wanted a Metroidvania game, it is very unique because it is a 2D open world game. It's very much a role-playing game in the vein of something like Skyrim or Breath of the Wild or any one of those open world type games, but done as a 2D action platformer, which is also why the exploration elements are a bit diminished. What am I trying to remember how to do? I'm trying to remember to put on my Druid's Eye. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now we're also going to remember to unlock the path back to town. And that is how I think that it also solves its money problem, because it's not its money problem, but how it structures its spending. Anyway, long speech over. Do I have enough pants yet? How many more pants do I need? That's it. That's the last pants. I now have enough pants. But man, I am just like banging into those pilgrims. Oh, but we can also do this. I don't know if I noted it, by the way, but the druid quest, that druid asks for mossberries, and by the time you get to her, you have probably found 2 of them already. You've definitely found 1. You'd have to be an idiot to have missed it. But you've definitely found 1. You've had the opportunity to find 2. You can probably find a 3rd one. Never enough pants stolen from the people you've killed. Yeah, that is certainly true. Okay. It is actually possible to have three when you reach the druid lady by missing that one. We'll come back to you. We'll have a conversation in a minute there, sir. Because that little guy's carrying around one too. So it's possible to get to the druid with three if you had gone this way first and then noticed that. But the druid will keep buying more moss berries from you for monies. And in fact, I'll say this too. This is another very clever aspect of the quest design in this game, is that many of the quests have a small barrier to completion or a small requirement to complete the quest minimally. And this path opens. There's now so many ways, so many shortcuts to get back up there. Anyway, so many of the quests in this game, in order to count as completed, you only need to do a small thing. But then you can kind of keep going for more. The Mossberry Lady quest is one. The Flea quest is another one, because to complete the Flea quest, we only need 5 fleas. But there's a total of 30 fleas throughout the game that we will just keep meeting and finding and meeting and finding. And you're not the one with the... I need the one with the berry. Oh, good. Yeah, that was good. Use your healing. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be this. Because I can't leave that behind. You do eventually pick up a ranged weapon other than that spell. But I can't leave it behind. I have a very peculiar quirk when it comes to playing games. Especially games I have played before. I have to play them the exact same way every time. I can't not. And so, like, I have to read all the dialogue every time, even if I'm not actually reading the dialogue. I at least have to... Do you come high enough for me to actually... No, this is it. This is the rest of the stream. We're going to be here all night. Settle in, folks. I better find another speech to give. Oh, okay. The Silk Spear thing. This is a very weird one to me. So, in very Metroidvania fashion, you reach the point where the Bell Beast is stuck in those webs. So uncharacteristic of the 90% speedrun world record holder, right? Right, I have mastered a 90% completion run. Or 90% zero, what is it, no completion. This is the 90% no completion speed run. This is usually where my speed runs die, though. It is getting this mossberry. I just need to land one more hit, right? This is it, hit number 3. As long as you don't leave the screen or rest at the bench, its little hit points don't come back. Okay, so the whole Silk Spear thing. This is a very, very strange one to me. And I don't know what to make of it. Because... Oh, I guess I should turn in the pants. Turn in the pants. Okay, turn in the pants, we get a thing. I'm actually going to hold the money, though. I'm not going to spend the money here because I know because I want to have it for the next set of discretionary purchases. I'm gaming the system a little bit. And we are going to go also turn in the Mossberry. And then we're going to pretend that after I had finished up in town, we took the fast travel back to where I was. Because that's the other thing, is then the fast travel lets you go back to where you were in the game. So never, JK, JK, I'm leaving, sorry, don't mind me. Just diagonal dashing through. I don't know if this is a thing. I have a lot of trouble getting Hornet to change direction. And I don't know if this is an issue in the game that others have had, where sometimes, like, I do such a quick tap on the D-pad that well, maybe that's my problem, is because I might be the only person who actually insists on using the D-pad. But, you know, when I learned how to play video games, D-pads were all we had. Anyway, she seems to be a little non-responsive to changing directions sometimes. And it harkens back to Mega Man 3, where there was a slight bug where sometimes Mega Man just didn't change direction if you weren't very firm on your direction press. Yeah, great. Thanks for throwing yourself in the pit. I didn't need that money. All right, so the Silk Spear thing. So you get to the place where we just got to, where the Bell Beast is imprisoned in the webs, and then we need to go off and do the Metroidvania thing of find the Silk Spear ability, and that is the only way to get rid of webs. And then there is the little tutorial room here that we just went through, where then we have to get rid of some webs, and then we get rid of some webs, and it's like, oh, okay, using the Silk Spear to get rid of webs is going to be a thing that I'm going to be doing repeatedly throughout the game. And the funny thing is, never again. After you free the Bell Beast, you never again have to break a webby barricade using the Silk Spear. It kind of makes sense in a weird way, because the Silk Spear, like, you don't know it now. There's a lot you don't know now. But you don't know it now, but the Silk Spear is just the first of six total silk spells that you can find through the game, and you can only have one equipped at a time. So you couldn't make barriers that were dependent on you just having the Silk Spear, because later on in the game, if you're me, you always have Threadstorm equipped, and so you would never have the Silk Spear equipped when you encountered that whatever. Okay. But it is a little bit weird. It harkens back to Hollow Knight again. And there's a lot of things that actually harken back to Hollow Knight. A lot of very, very familiar structures and plot beats, where they were clearly just iterating on the same pattern. Okay, because the first... I didn't have enough space to jump over you. The first progression upgrade you get in Hollow Knight is the ranged spell attack, the soul shooter. There's nothing over here that I can get now. Okay. Is the soul shooter, which you need to get past the roly bugs. And then you get past the roly bugs, and then your progression is never really blocked by the soul shooter again. By a need for the soul shooter, because it's actually a weapon, not a progress item. Though even that distinction is a little bit weird, because a lot of things are both in both Hollow Knight and Silksong. See, again, I thought I had turned around to, like, diagonal jump him from the other side, and it didn't. But it is very strange in this case that rather than just going with an enemy that you needed to make a ranged attack on, they went with this barricade that they taught you 3 times how to overcome with the Silk Spear that you will never ever encounter again. You will encounter webby barricades or things that are webbed up, but throughout the entire rest of the game, you can just cut them with your knife. uh, spear, pin, needle, whatever the hell she has. Thing, blade, weapon. It sounds like Short Circuit. Right? Short Circuit? No, of course not. Nobody does. Just me. Blade, sword, knife, spear, weapon, armament. Need input. Number Angry 5 is alive. Oh, man. I actually don't need to kill every damn thing. But in truth, that whole silk spear thing is sort of a symptom of what is, right, really got to stop just taking those guys in the face, is really a symptom of what isn't a problem and yet really annoyed the hell out of me the first couple of times I was trying to love this game. And that is, as Metroidvania games go, it's really lacking. And the whole Metroidvania-ness of it falls apart more and more. And Hollow Knight was a beautiful iteration on the Metroidvania formula, not just because it was a perfectly executed Metroidvania game, but because it also was an evolution of the formula that allowed for more player agency and freedom. It was a very branchy Metroidvania game. It was a Metroidvania game that allowed for a lot of different paths that all were equally as good, even though there was definitely a golden path through the game. There were a number of other paths that were all equally as good. So you had options. You could parse the options. You understood the options and their consequences. And remember that I said that, because that's going to be important later, the concept of understanding the options and their consequences. So you understood the options and their consequences. But it was never so open that it broke the game's progression. So it's like trying to figure out how to put this. It was like a Metroidvania game for a more modern era. Okay, it was a slightly open world Metroidvania game. Okay. But we should talk about the deepness thing. We're coming up on this game's greatest crime. We're coming up on this game's cemetery. And I'm pretty sure I talked it to death the first time I made you all watch me go through the first 2 hours of the game. But we're going to have to talk it to death again because it's so central to my thesis of they forgot the Metroidvania in my Metroidvania game. That's it. I was doing good, and then that was it. That's it. I'm just... Right. An elegant Metroidvania for a more civilized age. No, I really do think Hollow Knight it wasn't just a well-executed Metroidvania game. It was a Metroidvania game that had... A Metroidvania game is a linear game that hides the line. Hollow Knight was a branching game that hid the lines. And And Franco, you're kind of hitting it on the head. It feels like they tried to make an open world game when Metroidvanias are kind of defined by having closed worlds. Yeah, and that's well. So the term for a Metroidvania game is guided nonlinearity. It is a game that feels like it is a nonlinear game, but in reality, it is guiding you along a progression. And what Hollow Knight did was to take that approach and have several progressions and guide you along guide you along whichever one of those progressions you chose. Silksong is a game in two halves. The first half being extremely linear, and the second half being a totally open world. Neither one is a Metroidvania, though the first act tries to be one. Okay. And now here we have Beefy Ant, and I don't know. I don't even want to do this. Okay. This is the infamous Hunter's March, and I'm probably not going to be able to beat Beefy Ant. I don't know why I came in here. Yeah, because Beefy Ant's going to jump. Oh, I didn't use the... Damn it. Okay. We're just going to speed run the Beefy Ant rant and the whole Hunter's March thing. Okay. The Hunter's March... I just made you flash back to Final Fantasy 13 and now I feel sick. Yeah, the hallway. Metroidvania games are guided nonlinearity. Whereas Final Fantasy 13, the hallway, is basically forced linearity. It's guided linearity. It doesn't even do you the courtesy of lying to you and pretending you have choices. Okay. Anyway, Beefy Ant, Hunter's March. We've been through this before. I'm gonna face tank a few people. Yep, we're just gonna. Okay. I haven't pulled up the map at all once yet, which is weird. If I had been playing the game for the first time, I would have been looking at the map all along, and I didn't even comment on the map design and yada yada yada. But anyway, here is the problem. It is now natural to go in this direction. This is a very salient path, right? Like, it's got light shining, it's got a change of terrain. It definitely makes more sense than dropping down below it to find this secret here. Okay? If you look at the map, you can see that there's a little bit more to this area, but you're also mostly done with this area. So you go this way, and I have to go this way because I have to get my money back because I was carrying an ass ton of money. What the hell? We'll give Beefy Ant another try. Yeah, okay, we knew that was... Oh, but what I should have done is... I'm so stupid! What I should have done is use the bench. But this is actually... No, because this is exactly what I'm ranting at. This is the new player experience right here. It is very natural to continue following that path to the right and encounter Beefy Ant. So you fight Beefy Ant, he kills you, shoots you all the way back to the bench. You gotta fight Beefy Ant again. The problem with Beefy Ant is that you're not really strong enough to beat him. And by strong enough, I don't mean like you don't have enough upgrades or anything, or because this isn't like an RPG. But what I mean is you literally do not have abilities that you should have to fight Beefy Ant. Okay, there are two abilities that are extremely helpful. One very much so. So in the next area, we get the ability to dash. And that lets us get out of the range of Beefy Ant's long swings. Because Beefy Ant has a long swing. You know, he covers a wide area. And so, but with the little dash, we can actually get out of his way. Okay? You see what I mean? He's got that very long swing. The other thing you can do if you have the dash is you can actually run under him when he does his jump strike. Whereas if you haven't started moving before he leaves the ground, you're not getting under him. All right. That's not the new player experience. Just took me a couple of tries to lock in. Okay. This area, and I'm not going to continue any further into this area, is completely optional. It is also a dead end. It's actually not a dead end. It is kind of a dead end. It's not progress per se, but it does let you enter the next proper area from the wrong direction and break that area's. It's not beefy, it's beefy. Like beef, like cow meat, because he's swole. Did you see him? Yeah. So number one, as a new player, you think Beefy Ant is the way you're supposed to go. Okay. Number two, right below him, if you just keep going, there is a bench. Where if we had sat here first, then every time he killed us, we'd end up right back here instead of having to do that obnoxious run back. Number three, this is also where you get your first ranged weapon. Truly ranged weapon, not like the silk, not the spear thing. Okay. Which also helps because it lets you stay far away from Beefy Ant and just do some chip damage. And actually, the straight pin is actually a very effective weapon for what it is. And we'll talk about that in a second. And there's... Oh, shit. Yeah, thank you. Okay. You know what, actually? Let's do it. We're gonna pretend that we are the persistent new player for a bit. I'm gonna break the progression a little bit. There's a part where I'm gonna turn back, but let's do this because this area is a bitch. It's a really nasty bitch of an area. Okay? Because it also, like, there's a lot of that little, like, pogo platforming, a lot of little parkour platforming. The enemies all they're all hit point sponges, even those little guys. Those little guys, by the way, they do a nasty trick where they suddenly change speed on you if they are facing you and a certain distance away. And then they instantly change speed back if you're not on the same horizontal plane. So that if you try to jump over them, you have to take into account their speed change when you're not on the same level as them. Okay? Then the other thing is, like I said, so we have these nasty little platforming things where we have to really have mastered Hornet's obnoxious diagonal dash. Those enemies have strange adjustments too, because they hover and then they do a sudden charge. And then here we have here we have another ant. And then we get introduced to the ant warriors, who take something like 6 to 8 hits each. There's 2 different types, and they have very complex movesets. So, I mean, like, watch how many different things this guy does. So he does the air dash. He does the ground dash. He does a ground attack. He guards. Right? He has a very complex moveset. The most complex moveset of anything we've fought in this game, including bosses. Like, he's more complicated than Bell Beast. And this area is lousy with dudes like him. Okay? But if you think this is where you're meant to go next, so now you're banging your head against it. Right? And then... Yeah, it is. So, actually, Team Cherry, in an interview, they said that the Ant Warriors, these little guys, because this is the other variety of Ant Warrior. That was his little ranged attack, which tracks you, by the way. They were built to have the same number of moves as Hornet had in the original Hollow Knight. They basically built them to the same model move set of that many different... Whoops. I might get my ass killed here. This might have been a really stupid thing to do. It isn't. Oh, ha 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 ha. Oh, damn your money. Okay. So now we have plowed through all of this, and, you know, as a new player, you did not do that little string in one hit. And then this happens. This is like, okay, now we're locked in. Okay, and now we're in a gauntlet room. Oops. And I am not doing so great. The only advantage is if you come in here early in the game, then Chakram comes and helps you fight, which is awesome. And if you just play Keep Away, Chakram will beat most of the... This is Dirty Pool here, by the way. The Flying Ant guy, it is not cool to introduce a new enemy type in a gauntlet room. You should be introducing a new enemy type outside the gauntlet room. But beyond that, we could just kind of play Keep Away and let Chakram win this fight for us. It's kind of the only... Which she sort of did. I wasn't participating that much in that. Okay, but then you end up throwing yourself against this over and over again. Right? Where it's like, okay, you know, come back, do it again, do it again, do it again. I don't need the other pins. We need to hold on to money. I normally buy all the pins. Okay, and so now we're... Oh, no, we're not even yet at the heart of... We're not even at the heart of Hunter's March yet. Because even with Chakram helping you, that fight is a real... Yeah, no, I'm just going to not bounce. That fight's a real bitch, and it can take you a lot... I have lost some of my Silksong mojo here. Not that I had much to begin with, but... Okay. Here is the problem with all of this. Because okay, and I'm avoiding the traps too, because I know. Right, I know. But you don't know. If this is your first time through the game, you don't know. So you don't know that there's a pressure plate here that will do that to you. For 2 hits of damage. I didn't even discuss the 2 hits of damage thing. And look, there's another one. We jump over it. And whoop, oh, it has a friend. If you jump over it, you jump into the next one. Alright. I'm gonna die now. This stupid little ant is gonna die. Is gonna kill me. And then there's, do we go up or do we go down? I guess we're going down. We'll go down here. I know this is the wrong way to go, but whatever. This is a terrible way to go. Because now I'm going to be walking along, Oh no, I'm trapped. And, oh, this is actually going to kill me. I'm out of hit points. Wait, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be dicking around. Okay. I have to go back because all my money. Oh no. And I never equipped the little pin. Okay. I have to go back. I was just like trying to make a point. And now this is my night. It's just Hunter's March. Oh no. Alright, well we're going back. At least the boss is gone. At least the gauntlet is opened. That's fine. It's fine. But I'm not leaving all my money behind. Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll just have a stupid death here. See, so here's the thing too with the whole. I have a complaint about the corpse running mechanic. Specifically, it was bad in Hollow Knight, but okay. It's bad in Silksong and not okay anymore. So let's talk about the whole corpse running thing. Because the corpse running thing started in the Soulsborns. Right? It was Demon Souls. And, I mean, okay. No, I don't want to do a whole history of corpse running. Okay. Corpse running really started in online games. Online role-playing games. Where... And in fact, it goes back a long way because it was even a feature of text-based multiplayer online role-playing games. Okay, where if you died, you dropped all your equipment. And then it was just laying on the ground. So if some other player came along, they could pick up all your gear. Okay? And so... Corpse running started there in text-based multiplayer online games. It then went into MMOs. But eventually MMOs like I know it was in all the early MMOs. Like Ultima Onlines and your EverQuests and all the other things. But then World of Warcraft picked it up. But what's interesting about World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft eventually realized, because Blizzard used to be a really good company for game design, World of Warcraft eventually realized that letting players take other players' equipment was a dick move that nobody liked. And so it eventually became impossible for you to loot corpses of other players, unless like it had been left sitting for so long or some shit like that. I don't really remember the whole progression of it. I didn't think I was going to be doing a whole essay on the history of corpse running in video games tonight. So forgive me for not doing my research. But, okay, first we're not going to set off the trap. Second, I'm not going to pick up, because in case I need to heal, which is stupid because I only came here to pick, because I need to pick up my money. And so, oh, that was, holy shit, I am so stupid. I only came back here to get the money. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to let the silk cocoon sit there in case I need the mana refill from breaking it. We might as well go the rest of the way. Then I'm fighting the ant. I was like, oh yeah, then it'll maybe kill me. Oh, yeah. Alright. Memory locket. We have no idea what that does, and even if we did, we couldn't use it now because... Oh, yeah. Oh, actually, we could. We can. I don't need another crest to use it. It doesn't matter. Anyway. Yeah. There were restrictions based on like PvE versus PvP servers and stuff, and gradually the whole approach to corpse running changed in the online space. It was actually, I mean, Demon Souls technically introduced corpse running to the world, but so few people played Demon Souls when it first came out compared to Dark Souls, which is where everybody discovered the Souls genre. So Dark Souls was where corpse running became a household term. The sort of thing that families just discuss over the breakfast table now. You know, like, oh, could you pass me the bacon? How's work going, honey? Oh, it's not bad, though I had to do a pretty serious corpse run yesterday. you know, household name. But anyway, corpse running. So it was Dark Souls specifically used corpse running, and it used it very smart because the whole theme of Dark Souls is progress, you know, progress through tenacity. Or if at first you don't succeed, try again, or die again, whatever, right? Do I even need to? We're coming up on the bench. Do I even need to comment on the bench? I'm just going to do it. Anybody who hasn't played it, here we go. Here's the bench. There we go. There it is. You can disable it like this. Not even going to talk about it. I'll talk about it later. We'll get to bile water and then I'll talk about the bench. But fine, it is. You can disarm the trap. Okay. So the point is that it was a deliberate design choice in Dark Souls because it emphasized the theme of the game and worked with what the whole game was about, which I guess is me saying the same thing twice. The idea was dying was trivial as long as you always made some forward progress. Right? That was the goal in Dark Souls. As long as you got just a little bit farther than you had last time, then it didn't matter that you died. This, by the way, this is a path we cannot follow because we don't have the power up for it yet. We can't go any further up because we don't have the power up for it yet. We can't go any further in that direction where my money was because we don't have the power up for it yet. So that's what I mean. Like, Hunter's March is a complete and total dead end. It's completely useless to come this way. The only reward for it is an item that you have no idea what it does. So now we're going to go back and we're going to get back on the game's normal progression. But anyway, so corpse running. A lot of people will try to tell you that Dark Souls and its ilk are Metroidvania. Well, no, the Hunter's March rewards are awesome. Okay, because the best reward, like, number 1, Fractured Mask, number 2, Boomerang, number 3, you get to fight the Savage Beastfly, which is one of my favorite bosses in the game. And I was not saying that to be a dick. I love the Savage Beastfly. And I know I'm the only one in the world. We're heading out. I'm just making for the exit. It's closing time. I'm not going home, but I'm not staying here. Except now I'm gonna... Okay, fine. Anyway. A lot of people will make the claim that Dark Souls and games like it are Metroidvania games because they do have some ability-gated advancement. But it takes more than ability-gated advancement to make a Metroidvania game, and Dark Souls does not have enough of that. Dark Souls is guided non-linearity. It is a non-linear game that guides you through its progression, but it is not a Metroidvania game. And the primary means of progress is throwing yourself at challenges over and over again until you master them. Hollow Knight chose to use corpse running because corpse running looked new and shiny. Corpse running solved a problem that video games had been trying to solve for years, and that is, what do we do if we don't have a life system? Because, of course, in the very early days of video games, you had a limited number of lives. And when you ran out of lives, then you got a game over and you had to start over from the beginning. If you died, you went back to a checkpoint. And then if you died... I hate that. There. Screw you. And then if you died, you gamed over, and then you were starting back at the beginning of the game, unless you had continues, in which case you would start at a different other checkpoint. So there were all these layers of how far back death would put you. But end of the day, it was all the same. You had a limited number of chances to win, and if you didn't win in those chances, then you had to start over from scratch. There's no reason for that anymore. Obviously, that was partly a holdover from the arcade days. But it's also not the worst thing in the world. There are actually good aspects to it, even if you're not trying to extract quarters from people. Unpopular opinion, I'll talk about that another time. Okay. I beat Avatar Cliffy to the punch. You brought up sucking all the quarters out of you. Okay. There are aspects to it other than making you pay for plays. Okay, there are reasons. A life system is actually not a bad choice. If it's a choice, if it's the right game. Okay. All of that said, video games had been struggling around the idea of life systems because the alternative to a life system is that you die and you just get to try again with no lost progress at all, right? You die and the game just respawns you. So now you have experiments like, okay, well, checkpoints, right? Where, you die and then you go back to a checkpoint that is such and this far away and so on and so forth. And the problem, though, is that even respawning at a checkpoint, at a certain point, it does trivialize the cost of failure. And if failure is just, oh, okay, you failed, try again, then success becomes a little bit cheap feeling. And I don't mean in terms of like you didn't deserve your success because you just got to try over and over again. This isn't about deserved or anything. Though there is a concept of earning your victory. But it's not earning your victory in that you have to prove you're worthy of a victory to have it. It's instead, victory feels good after you overcame some adversity to acquire it. And if the adversity that you overcame was trivial to begin with, then the victory doesn't feel good. And the other problem is that if you respawn to do the same challenge 50 times, and you keep doing the same 3-minute chunk of gameplay, and then facing the challenge over and over and over and over again, eventually the tedium sucks up your momentum. So the idea of after a certain number of retries, something changes. Even if that something changing is, well, you have to go back to a more distant checkpoint or something like that, that still helps overcome the tedium problem and overcome the cheapening of the victory problem. But anyway, corpse running was a very clever solution, particularly for Dark Souls, because it worked. Okay. I'm not gonna do a corpos sucking quarters thing, because I really want to push back on your phrasing of that, as like Yeah, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to get into like a capitalist philosophy discussion here. Okay, I'm not rising to that incendiary comment designed specifically to get a rise out of me. Okay, so where corpse running is good is where your forward progress is based on persistence and mastery, which is what Dark Souls and all of its games are all about. Where corpse running is bad is in a game that is primarily about the freedom to explore and the choice to explore in different directions, especially if one of the promises the game makes is that if you get stuck going in one direction, you can always turn around and try a different path. There are many paths to your goal, so don't keep banging your head against one that is difficult. Or in a game where one of the ideas is to run into an obstacle that you do not have the means to overcome, and then recognize that you need to turn around and find the means to overcome it. In both of those cases, and Hollow Knight is both, by the way, in both of those cases, corpse running is a bad mechanic. Okay? The idea that there is always another path around, and if you get stuck going in one direction, you should try to go in another way, is great. But if you died and left your experience points or souls or money or whatever on that failed path that you now want to abandon in favor of going a different way, you first have to run back and retrieve your lost crap and then detour off that path. In the case of the exploration-based game, where you frequently end up walking down paths that turn out to be dead-end paths so that you can get to the dead end, recognize an obstacle, turn around and go back the other way. Then again, if you die along that path, you now have to go back, retrieve your shit, and then come back the other way. Hollow Knight should not have had a corpse running mechanic. It was a bad choice for Hollow Knight. But it still worked out okay for Hollow Knight because Hollow Knight's world design was so based on shortcuts, loops. Oh, I forgot I was in a gauntlet room and there was more things coming. I was just ready to take a break. Hollow Knight was so based on looping structures and shortcut structures and doors to before, plus it had fast travel, that the corpse running mechanic, while it was wrong for it, it wasn't wrong enough to suck. Okay, and one of the things Hollow Knight was very careful of is after you beat a challenge, it never made you beat a challenge in the other direction. So if you beat a hard platforming challenge, there was always a door to before at the end of those platforming challenges, so that you didn't have to go back through it again. And if you got at least that far and then died somewhere else, then because now that dead-end path became a loop, right? Its dead-end paths became loops. And so that was a lot easier to deal with the corpse running. So the corpse running was a bad choice for Hollow Knight, but Hollow Knight's world structure was good enough that it didn't ruin Hollow Knight. Silksong is not nearly as careful about that shit. Okay, it doesn't rely as heavily on loops and doors to before. There's a lot of places that are just pure dead ends. Like Hunter's March being a good example of it just being, it's an area that just dead ends out. And that's assuming that you can... It has 2 entrances, but it then just goes nowhere from there. And it has bosses at the end of those dead ends, and it's entirely optional. So you end up with your money stuck somewhere in there, and you might decide, what I did before was I looked at it and said, you know what? I don't want to do this right now. And then I'm like, but I left 700 monies now at the end of that dead end. Oh, wait, I have a memory charm. Sweet. I'm not even talking about this game anymore. I'm talking about game design in general. That's fine. I don't know what people want to hear from me anyway. Without chat to respond to, then I'm just like going off on my own tangents here. Silksong's design shows that the corpse running mechanic is just bad for it. And the thing is, it's actually not bad in Act 1. Except for the I'm just not paying attention to what I'm doing. I got so distracted. Chats popped up. People were... So this is what just happened. I was sitting here saying, gosh, I wish people in the chat would say things that I could respond to. And then people said things, and I immediately just had an aneurysm and started walking into enemies. Like, oh shit, chat! Bonk, 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 dead. Oh, right, the ground is on fire, and I forgot to put on my fireproof necklace. I'm not even paying attention to the game. I'm just using this game as an excuse to do a live stream. Until I get to a boss fight. Then the boss fight, I'm like, okay, live stream's on pause for a second while I do the boss fight. Okay. Yeah, and then I'm just keep walking through the fire, dumbass. Yeah, this is it. All you gotta do is hop. As long as you hop, you don't catch fire. Okay. Alright, I've now lost the thread of any of the discussions that I was having. Ouch! I'm gonna die here. I'm gonna die! This is a far cry from me beating the Moss Mother with no hits, right? Like the hardest boss in the game. Oh yeah. I did a no-hit run on that tutorial boss. Because I'm world's best Silksonger. Alright. Anyway. Okay. Yeah, so the corpse running mechanic is really kind of a pain in the ass in this game. And the other thing about it, what really bothers me about the corpse running mechanic, and I will tell a story from one of my 20 playthroughs in which I did not beat the game, because I haven't yet. But this is the point where I realized just how bad the mechanic actually was. So, you hit a point in the game. So first of all, you do eventually come to realize that the money thing is really not such a big deal. It's more of a big deal than it was in Hollow Knight, but the money thing is still not such a big deal. And there is a calculated choice you can make where it's like, you know what? I don't need to go back for my money. Someone in chat remind me next time I go to a bench to just, put on my fireproof bell that I bought purposely to not catch fire. But anyway, so you eventually reach a point where either you're not carrying much money, or you don't really need the money, or you're carrying a lot of strings, you have a lot of reserve money, whatever it is. And so you can make the choice to say, you know what? The money that I dropped in my corpse is not worth going back for. That's a fair choice to make. That's a strategic choice. There's nothing wrong with that choice. And in fact, the game should allow you to make that choice. But the other thing you lose when you drop a corpse behind you is you lose some of your maximum mana. I haven't really been talking about the game mechanics. I've been assuming that everybody pretty much knows how this game works. But in the upper left-hand corner, you have a little spool that is winding up with silk as you fight enemies. Every time you land a hit, you get a little bit of silk on your little spool, and you expend the silk. Whoops. Thanks, Kate. Thank you. It's a little bit of a... The only thing that got me was a little bit of a stream delay there, but here we go. Okay. Now I got my fireproof bell on. Not that I need it that much, but anyway. Okay. So... I also wanted to talk about the design of this area, but that's okay. Because I think this area is also... I think actually the... You know what? Honestly, the early game is the... Map design-wise, it's not great, but the early game is the best that this game gets at in terms of level design. Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to that. What was I saying? Okay. So, you have silk. It winds up as you attack enemies. You expend it to heal and use your spell attacks. Okay. As you go through the game, you find artifacts that expand your maximum silk capacity. I have found they come in halves. You find 2 of these artifacts, and then you get an extra little wind of silk on your silk meter. I have found 2 so far, so I have 1 extra little wind of silk. Okay, that becomes very valuable later. But anyway, when you drop a corpse, in addition to leaving your money behind, you also leave behind all of your maximum silk capacity. So anything other than your base, so you start off with 9 points worth of mana, and then you gradually expand that capacity. If you have left your corpse in the world, you are reset down to 9 maximum mana until you find your corpse, and then you restore all the rest of the maximum mana that you have found throughout the game. Okay, so going back to your corpse is not just about losing your money, it's also about your capacity to use your spells, your healing, and your attacks, your attack magic. And the thing is, because there's a whole thing about the silk design in this game too that we could go into here. I'll do that in a second. Okay. If you use a lot of silk spells, and I like to, particularly I very much like a particular spell I'll find later called Threadstorm. I use it all the time. I use it for crowd control. It's basically awesome. It's the only spell worth having in the entire game. I'm just going to keep running into those guys. Those guys, they have a lot of inertia. So when you hit them, they don't bounce back. Like, you know what? I'm just going to walk into everything, and we're going to see how far. It's just like one of those challenge runs of, like, you know, can you beat Silksong if you walk into literally every enemy and trap? Which, yeah, it's an all hit run. I'm doing the opposite of a no-hit run. It's the opposite of a Steel Soul run. I'm doing a Jelly Soul run. I'm a Porcelain Soul run. Anyway, sorry. Okay. So here is what happened. I don't remember exactly where, but I ended up dying in a place where I left a bunch of money behind. And it was down a dead-end path. And I didn't want to go back for it. But I wanted my soul my mana capacity back. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I have now made the choice that the losing the money is just not a big deal to me. I don't care. Okay, there is an item that you can find a few of in this game that lets you retrieve your corpse from a distance. It's called the Silk Eater or something. But there's not like a million of them. And you never know when you're going to find more unless you've, played through 96% of the game 20 times. Then you know where 96% of the Silk Eaters are. I don't know why I felt the need to heal there, but that's fine. Also don't know why I'm not using any of my tools or anything. So I had decided the money was not worth it. But also, the damn Silk Eaters are too valuable to use. They're like the like X potions or elixirs in Final Fantasy, right? Where you end the game with 99 elixirs because they're just too damn valuable to use. And I'm certainly not going to use them on even fighting the last boss because it's Final Fantasy. You never know when that last boss is going to be like actually, I was the second to last boss because the sum of all my rage and hatred is the next last boss. Now fight my internal conflict. Or, so you beat the final boss of the game, huh? Well, here's the universal concept of death. It's now the final boss. Friggin' Final Fantasy IX. It's like, good job beating the villain that has been built up through the whole game. Now I'm literally the concept of nihilism, and I will be taking over the villain spot from here. Final Fantasy IV. I'm just gonna fall in every pit too. It was Final Fantasy IV, right? Where actually the two NPCs they beat the final boss for you, and you're like, so I guess we don't have to do it. And then all of a sudden there's a thing. It's like, no, I have taken on the form of, or I am Zamus's malice. I'm like his anger at losing to the NPCs, and now I take on a physical form so you can fight me as the final boss. Yeah, it's that kind of bullshit. But anyway, so the stupid Silk Eaters are too valuable to use. So I've already made this. So here's what I did. I threw myself I woke up at the bench. My corpse is somewhere out there where I don't want to go back and get it. I don't want to use a Silk Eater. They're too damn valuable. I want my maximum mana back. I don't care about the money. And so I literally threw myself into pits to kill myself so that a new corpse would spawn there. The money would be gone, but I'd get my maximum mana back. For my decision space, that was a perfectly valid strategic decision. And in fact, honestly, if you don't care about the money you're leaving behind, it's just the easiest way. Like, you save the Silk Eaters for when you care about the money. And if you don't want to go back and get your corpse, but you don't care about the money, just kill yourself. And then let your new corpse spawn next to you. And then you get your maximum mana back. And who cares about the money because you already decided you didn't care about it. And right there, the fact that that is not only a possibility, but is actually a valid move. That's a smart decision. That shows you that the corpse running thing is bad design. Because that is not a way you would ever want a player playing a game. It's just not. It's not something you would ever want a player to do. I don't want the player to kill myself to avoid the corpse running mechanic. So really, the corpse running mechanic, I proposed this solution, and I think Kate just typed it out and basically typed the same thing that I had thrown out at some point in some chat, that you should always have the option to press a button and suck the silk from your cocoon back into you, no matter where it is in the world. You don't have to get to it. which restores your silk capacity and abandons the money. You should have that choice. Here's another unpopular opinion. I hate lace. I don't like this fight. And it's not because I'm bad at it, though it's probably going to make it look really bad right now. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, this is going great. And into the lava. I found my level of competence, which was the tutorial boss. Once I'm out of the tutorial boss, I'm really out of my depth. Oh, hey, Arthur is here. Oh my god. You know what? I'm taking a do-over. I'm taking a do-over. I'm locking in. I refuse, because I think I would have pulled that off, but I refuse for it to have looked that bad. I'm going to lock in for a second here. Okay. I stuck my jump, or I fucked up my jump. No, not into the lava! It was going almost well. Not great. It was my typical club. Damn it! Okay. I probably should have given this a practice run sometime between January and deciding to stream it again. Well, yeah. It also doesn't help that when she's on the right side of her little bridge, chat messages cover her up. I keep not jumping fast enough. Like, I'm not stupid. I'm whacking her when she's in parry mode on purpose because I want... Oh my goodness. I don't know what I'm doing. That's exactly what she is armed with. Like, in an earlier version of the game, their Avatar Cliffy, you could actually acquire a version of her weapon as a trophy, and it was actually revealed to be an ejector thingy for a solid-state drive. This is awful. I'm so stupid. All right, no more joking. I shouldn't be having this much trouble with Lace. This is what I get for saying I hated her. Okay, we're just going to be quiet and we're just going to beat Lace. This is humiliating. I quit. You know what? We're not doing. We're giving up on the Silksong stream. This is the worst. Yeah, it's time for restart number 22. Okay, well, that's fine. Take a lava. This is like the Ornstein and Smo of Silksong now, but she's not. That's the worst part. She's actually not that tough. Oh. Right, and then run into her when she goes back to the center. Also, I also keep not actually doing diagonal dives. And just misjudging the distance on everything. Also, I should probably heal. That was awful. That was humiliating. I'm deleting this stream. I normally don't care. I make fun of myself. I call myself a crappy gamer all the time. I make a big joke about how much I suck at things. I do not care. I have no pride. But that was awful. That was inexcusably ugly, horribly awful. Holy shit. You know what? I'm rolling back to save, and we're going to do that again. It wouldn't kill me, but then, like, in the middle of it, like, there were clearly parts where I, like, knew my moveset and was reacting to her moves and handling things. And then I would just, like, have a nervous breakdown and just completely fuck up. Ugh. And I wouldn't care, but okay. I don't know. What's our next new topic, game design-wise? Or should I stop? It's been 2 hours. Maybe we should call it a night here and come back next Sunday? Yeah, but I don't know how to stream to YouTube with my RetroPie. But I can. I can still beat the Turbo Tunnel. As of every year, on my birthday, I boot up Battletoads for the original NES. And I make sure... Oop, I went the wrong way. I forgot those two guys were up here. You know the other thing I hate about these ants? That was great. Also, wrong button. The other thing I hate about these ants is that they're in like 17 different areas. Like, pick an ecosystem and stay there. Okay, standard Metroidvania rules. Okay, everybody lives in one biome, and that is it. Anyway. Yeah, so every year on my birthday, I boot up the original Battletoads. Just to make sure that I can still beat the Turbo Tunnel. I cannot beat Battletoads. I never did. But I have a very long personal history with Battletoads. It was actually the first Nintendo game, or the first video game at all, that I ever bought with my own money that I had saved myself from chores. Before that, every video game I had ever gotten had been a gift from someone. My mother had bought it for me or whatever. But the original Battletoads for the original NES, that was the first game I saved up for myself because Nintendo Power made it look awesome. And I was of that age there where, you start doing chores and earning your own money, which is something kids used to do, was doing chores and earning their own money. And Nintendo Power did a whole feature on Battletoads, and it was like the most awesome video game ever. Like, very clearly, I remember poring over that issue of Nintendo Power over and over again. And, oh, right. I really hate that. I really hate... You know what? We're going to have a little talk about unfair, unfair difficulty. Okay. Anyway. So, and because I had bought Battletoads, I refused to give up on it. And I played it constantly. And the farthest I ever got was level, I'm trying to remember now. I got to the rat race. I got to the gargantua ducts. I just can't remember the order of the later levels in the game. Okay, either way, I never beat the game. But at some point a few years ago, actually there's a lot of years ago now, I decided that I was not truly an old man until I lost my video game mojo. It's like Gary Gygax once said, you don't stop playing games when you get old when you stop playing games. Except in my case, it's you get old when you get bad at games. And so, I decided that the way I would test every year whether I was old or not was on my birthday to boot up Battletoads and at least make sure that I could beat the Turbo Tunnel. Of course, it's not really a fair challenge because I do it every year, so, I know the Turbo Tunnel very, very well. I just missed that jump. That was great. I don't know what... I'm not even paying attention anymore. I'm talking about Battletoads. Let's talk about unfair difficulty. And oh, you have a or let's just talk about me being really stupid. I'm just like face tanking now. I saw Cliffy or Avatar Cliff, Avatar Cliffy, Final Fantasy VI was first game, and Kate is saying first game was Pokemon Platinum, which clearly shows a bit of a generational difference there between Kate and then between like Cliffy and myself. Half-Life 2. Get out of here, you zygote. Back in my day. This is actually the hallway that I was like. I'm not even talking about the layout. It's like, this is a shame. I really want to talk about the layout of these areas, and I'm not because I'm just distracted. All right, let's talk about level design. Oh, Odog the Atari. With your own money, though? I mean, I had the little wood-paneled Atari 2600 as a kid. One of my first video games ever was Pitfall. Yeah, Pitfall. That was a good move. Hey, Ben. Thanks for hanging out on the stream. Haven't seen you in a while either. So, bat. Okay. Okay. Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time. Yeah, no. Okay. So, okay. If the first game you bought for yourself as a child was in 3D, you don't get to talk. You don't get to talk because you make me feel old. Though with O-Dog here, I don't have to feel that old. Okay. I don't want to do this either. That's Avatar Cliffy is trying to draw me into a trap again. Because here's the thing. You know what? I don't think... Uh-oh. 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 I made a poor choice. Okay. I need to pay attention more. Uh-oh. 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 There's a lot of uh-oh. Oh, this is going to be bad. I don't even remember when I last saved. You know what? I think we're going to call the stream for the night. It's been a little over 2 hours. So, actually, wait. Before I do that, let's... Yeah, see, what I need is more gaming friends who can call me a zygote. What's the deal, by the way, with Unk? When did that come back? That's such a weird one. Unk is a very old piece of slang that basically vanished for a long time. And yeah, it's back again, and people use it to refer to basically, it is someone of an advanced generation surrounded by people of a younger generation. It's not just being old. Okay? It's being old around younger people. Okay? And it's actually primarily military slang, and I want to say it's basically like World War II era. But I don't want to swear to that because I'm not entirely sure. But it was the term for a soldier of advanced age, who was still of a low rank. Somebody who never ranked up, who just didn't advance. And so, they were still among all the privates and the green people, but they themselves were much older than everyone else they were serving with. Or someone who went into basic training late. Someone who enlisted in the military very later in life. And someday I will remember that those guys explode when you kill them. So, but here's the thing. Outside of, the greatest generation and the silent generation, nobody says Unk. And then all of a sudden, one day, all the little Zoomers are saying Unk. It is very strange to notice that, to see that. You guys want to float up on that bridge? Right up there. How about you float right up there where I can hit you from underneath and you can't hit me? How about we do that? Let's play. Oh, no, 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 no. That's cheating. Ah, shit. I am playing like crap tonight because I'm too busy complaining about Zoomer slang. Yeah, Unk, I saw your comment, Kate. Unk is a very old term. Yeah, Unk predates bell bottoms, but like, yeah, right. Okay, it's the alphas now. I know. I see. Now I keep doing the same thing that I complained of. Like all the Zoomers kept calling me Boomer, right? They were all always saying "Okay, Boomer" to me, and I hate that because I am not a Boomer. I'm a Gen Xer. But, you know, being a Gen Xer, I didn't want to make a fuss about it because Gen Xers just want to be left alone. They're like our greatest, our aspiration in life is just everybody leave us the hell alone. But anyway, so yeah, so now I did the same thing where I'm calling the alpha Zoomers. Okay, now Bell Guy comes. Symbol Guy. Okay. Do I even have to go over here? Is there anything over here? Is there a reason why I'm trying to... Oh. Well, actually, they're not, though. Like some of the names are made up. Oh, dog. But actually, it's fairly simple. It's mostly just letters. Like what we call the millennial generation is actually Generation Y, and the Zoomers are Generation Z. And Generation Alpha is because we ran out of letters in the alphabet. Okay, but Zoomer is Generation Z, Gen Xers, because they kind of gave up on coming up with names for the generations. And then the other thing is that, see, what am I doing? I'm like having a conversation. I'm sure glad no one's PvPing me. Hey, Masilda. I'm just terrified because I only have 1 health left. And I don't want to have to come over here again. And I almost just did, because I can't stop breaking the little breakables. There's no reward for breaking those breakables. There's nothing ever hidden in them. There's nothing. Okay, I have enough health, silk to heal. There's nothing hidden in those breakables. Okay, this has ceased to be a Silksong playthrough. As I said, this is just a podcast where I happen to be adding the challenge of failing at Silksong behind it at this point. All right. Which is a shame, because we're coming up on one of my favorite bosses. I absolutely love the... What? Why does this make you... Why does watching me play this make me feel slow? Hi, Masilda. What? Can you unpack that? Just like struggle. What? You know what? You guys, you're all good. I'm not even talking about the game design, though. I wanted to... I really... okay. Oh, well, Masilda, what you had, so the secret to reacting and moving around quickly is to play the first 90% of the game 25 times over 300 hours, it turns out. I have put over 300 hours into sucking this bad at this game. Okay, that Lace fight, I have fought Lace 40 times or something. I never did give a rant on unfair difficulty. Oh, and now it's gone. Okay. I know, I'm not even talking about the game. I really wanted to unpack the game. It's just, it's so nice streaming again because it's almost like having friends. I've been so lonely. I wish that was more of a joke than it was. I wish that was a bit. Yeah, okay. It's the visibility thing, right? Okay. Honestly, I should probably save this for Trobio, but at the rate we're going, we're never going to see Trobio. Trobio! I don't know why everyone fucking loves Trobio. Okay. The problem, like... So, there are a lot of traps in this game, especially in the Hunter's March. Okay. Panache is another word for obnoxious. Okay. So there are a lot of traps in this game, especially in the Hunter's March. Okay, because which thematically makes sense. Just even by the name alone, the ants are hunters, and hunters use traps. But beyond that, there is a very late game optional boss that is basically traps the boss. That was a good landing. There are a lot of traps in the game, especially in Hunter's March, and a lot of them are set off by pressure plates that are just barely visible. But then, because of foreground clutter, a few of them just are not. A few of the pressure plates are just not things you can spot, even if you're attentive. Because I'm all for the attention challenge, right? And especially in an exploration-based game. Okay, the attention to detail challenge is a fair challenge where you're asking the player to notice small clues in the environment in order to find secrets or recognize patterns or things like that. And this goes from everything from, like, do you notice the breakable wall, even if it's hard to spot, all the way through to things like the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild, where it's like, do you notice deviations in visual patterns? Like, do you notice that those trees, all of them have the same number of apples but one, right? I have nothing against attention as challenge. In fact, in video games, it's a fair challenge because it tests something other than just agility. It tests pattern recognition. And honestly, what makes it really good is that it's pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is fantastic because it's learnable. Okay, pattern recognition is not something that you start with. It's something that represents a kind of mastery of the game and its systems. Is that you have learned its patterns, you recognize them, you know what to look for, you're attentive enough to spot them. That's good challenge. Okay. The problem, and I don't know whether this is deliberate or not, which is where I run into real trouble. Okay. I don't think Team Cherry understood the actual nature of the attention test. Okay, I'm just going to walk off every ledge. Okay, we're done here. We're done. I got enough. If the fourth chorus goes bad, my heart is going to break, and then I'm just going to shut off the stream. Because I love fourth chorus, but also either way, I'm ending after fourth chorus, but okay. So what happens a lot in Silksong is there's actually a couple of things that happen. Number one is attention challenges that are buried behind clutter so that they are much more difficult to spot, which is there's a point where that's still okay, and then there's a point where that's just no one's going to notice that. And it's one thing if it's a secret. It's a one thing if it's a bonus. Like it's you got a new here's some money, or here's a mask upgrade or whatever. Though again, the kind of upgrade you hide behind those secrets matters. But anyway, if there's a penalty for not spotting it, like taking a trap to the face, then that quickly goes into the territory of kind of feels dickish. If there's pain involved, like theoretically, an attentive player should be able to avoid all damage. That is not like a hard and fast rule for absolutely everything. But if we're going to do the trap as attention challenge thing, then theoretically an attentive player should be able to avoid all damage once they learn the pattern, or at least most damage. Okay. There is a point where if the visual clutter or the visibility of the signal is so impeded that most reasonable players will not spot it, that now you have gone into the realm of unfair difficulty. Because there is nothing that a player can do to mitigate that, okay? There's nothing to learn. If the pressure plate is just not visible to most people, if the detail is so small that most people cannot possibly spot it, then missing it is not failing at a challenge. Missing it is just you're a human person. And so now you are just being punished for not having the visual senses of a hawk. Okay. The idea behind a challenge is that you should be able to somehow, in some way, through learning or skill or even luck, mitigate what happened. And if you can't do that because literally just your view is blocked, like you can't see the thing because it's behind another thing, and this is a 2D game, so it's not like I can circle around to get a different perspective. I'm going to lock in for the rule. The rule from now on is going to be we're going to lock in for bosses because I'm not having another lace incident. Also, I do like the little visual detail of the Pinstress's pin is stabbed into the fourth chorus, which plays into this story that the Citadel was hunting the Pinstresses down. But also, we're not even paying attention to the story, so it's too late for me to even care. Honestly, I think the fourth chorus is one of the best designed bosses in this game. And part of it is it communicates its moves so well that even if you don't know what it does, you can guess what it's doing. Though I'm not doing the greatest. Like, it telegraphs extremely well. It's also very careful. Like, there is a very careful design to how much of the floor and what of the floor it's allowed to break. It's also cool that it comes at a time where you've just gotten the floaty cloak, so that, like, that horizontal sweep that it does is, like, perfect to avoid with the floaty cloak. Like, if you just jump and then hover, which I shouldn't try to demonstrate. Well, see? Just jump and then hover, and you will not ever get hit by that horizontal sweep. And then, if too much of the floor is gone, you have the float and hover option. It's like a perfectly designed boss for the upgrade you just got. And it's the only boss in the game that I can think of that does that. It's like, oops, uh-oh. Ah, fuck me. I got too conversational. Okay? Like, I'm trying to think of another boss in this game that pays off the upgrade you needed to get it to that degree. Where it's almost like a Zelda puzzle boss. I almost walked off into the lava. Okay. Okay, we're just gonna have a good run at this now, so we're gonna stop talking about the boss. But I also want to note that it's cool that it doesn't have a damage box on its body. Okay, I'm still not quite locked in. It's even okay that it's a vertical boss. Because... yeah, okay. This is still not a great run. But honestly, for returning to the game after 3 months of not playing it, this is my first time back on the field after my terrible injury. There's a video. I don't know if I shared it. I'll share it in the. I'll. As soon as I start talking, I fuck up. I really am just, like, the worst tonight. I also love this little optional kill that you can do if you notice the air geysers. You don't have to use this method to kill the boss. Like, you could just keep fighting it until it's dead. But I do love that little optional kill, which again capitalizes on your floatiness. On the floaty cloak. It's so well done. Yes, that is optional. You can just keep beating the boss to death. Yeah, right, this is a warm-up playthrough. Next week we'll start a new playthrough for reals. I'll start my real playthrough. And now we can climb out of here. Alright. All right, it has been a fun playthrough, or it's been a fun hangout. I never even came in here, huh? Okay. It's been a fun hangout, but I'm going to call it a night. It seems like maybe next week I should start this like an hour later than I did. Because it seems like I started a little bit too early and folks were not, some folks were not able to show up that early. So, thanks everybody for hanging out and showing up for my return to streaming and watching me replay the same first 2 hours of the game I already had. And for waiting so patiently for me to return to this. There's a little secret here, but we can't do anything with it yet. Okay. Next week, I promise we'll actually like talk about the game. I really want to talk about the design of certain areas. I want to talk about the maps. I've lost my opportunity to talk about some of the maps. It's fine. We're not even going to finish off the fleas. But it has been a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Those of you in the Discord. So anybody who's watching this who doesn't know, I host a website, theangrygm.com, where I do tabletop role-playing game content. I write long-form advice, which is really cool. You should check that out. This is just a side thing I do purely for funsies. For those who are members of my community and supporters, especially at the frenemy tier, who have been following my building my own role-playing game engine project despite its long recent stall. It is cranking back into high gear now. There's going to be a couple of alpha playtests coming. I will be discussing all of that tomorrow if you missed the announcement. Tomorrow evening, that's Monday, March something. Monday, March 23rd, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Daylight Time. I will be hosting a Slap Chat in the Discord for those who are members to let you know what is actually happening with the project and what to expect going forward. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Thanks especially Franco for keeping the stream alive at the beginning before everyone showed up, and Avatar Cliffy and Great Kate for participating. It was good to see you, Arthur, Cephlon, O-Dog. Thanks for coming by. It was good to see you in a stream again. Miss Hilder stopped in, and Ben was here as well. Oh, you're JF the sequel. Franco JF the sequel. Now I know your full name. You're JF Franco, the sequel. Are you like the sequel to James Franco? Yeah, if anybody who is, I also gave that spiel for the people who watch later. Actually, yes. Wait a minute. Wait, don't do that. Oh, wait. Are you related, or did you just steal his name for your own? Because you like James Franco. Your gamer tag was James Franco too. The sequel to... So you're the original sequel to James Franco? Do you have a thing for Japanese body pillows? Oh, okay, I got it now. So you were roommates with James Franco. I get it now. Okay. All right. Anyway, at this point, I sign off. All right. Everyone have a great night. Everyone have a great week. See you tomorrow. Or whenever. Whenever I see any of you.